Hello, everybody. Ian Barkin here. Welcome back to OneTAKE Live. Thrilled to have you join me. We've already got some folks on the live stream who've shared their names. That's awesome. So, and I'll usually do this after this intro, but I just think it's cool that they've already shared the names. So, Zahid, hello. Paul from Scotland, hello. Claire, hello from Edinburgh as well. Kedwin, hi. Janish, hello. So please, if you are joining, share where you're joining from, and then share questions as we get going, as I love this engagement and this live ability to engage with folks around the world. So as I said, welcome to OneTAKE Live. We didn't do very many shows last week. It was a little crazy last week, but we are back. I'm excited that we've got some great shows coming up for you. And for those who are new to this, OneTAKE is basically, it was originally basically meant to be a chance for me about once a month to speak to experts in their particular fields about work, life, and culture in this future of work, life, and culture. But then we all got sent home. And so that gave us a chance to explore how do we do this more often, because frankly, there's so many great discussions to have with so many interesting people, and I didn't want to lose time, and I didn't want to fall out of touch with them or not share context and useful information with you. So here we go, OneTAKE Live from home. Well, I'll get going, but one more thing I want to just bring up, as we do often. If you do find yourself out of work and looking for opportunities, SYKES is always hiring. We've got a really robust at-home capability that lets you work from home. It's a capability we've developed over a decade, actually, and are helping a lot of enterprises to adapt and shift to this at-home situation now that everybody has had to figure out. So jobs@sykes.com if you are in need and interested, jobs@sykes.com. So really, without further ado, we're in a unique and interesting time, facing challenges that are pandemic, global, but they aren't necessarily new. And there are a lot of enterprises that have had to figure out, how do you use the tools available to you, like this, like social media, to not only build personal brands, which is somewhat of the activity that I'm doing here, I suppose, but also to maintain and build and adjust very gently their enterprise brands. And so for that, I could not think of a better person to have as a guest on my show as my next guest, Sarah Grace McCandless. So Sarah Grace, welcome to OneTAKE Live.
Hi, Ian. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here and to talk to everyone today about this.
Awesome. So Sarah Grace, you're a VP of Customer Engagement and Brand Advocacy. You work at Clearlink, and we're at SYKES. So tell us a little bit about your background, what you've done in your career, and how you've developed the skills and experiences that got you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I'm with Clearlink. I've been with the SYKES organization for just about 5 years now, but moved into this role. I've always been really focused on architecting and designing digital strategies and solutions for our clients on a global level. That really has a big foundation in social, but other digital touch points as well. And that includes kind of all points of the customer journey. So from attracting, acquiring, supporting, and retaining. And a big part of my focus now in my role with Clearlink is really on creating those brand engagements and brand moments that are going to drive brand love, brand loyalty, and brand advocacy. And it can happen throughout pretty much any stage of the customer journey. And it really works hand in hand with the customer service side of things to build that overall ultimate customer experience. My background prior to SYKES was really on the marketing side, both brand and agency. So I kind of came from that side, and then really got myself immersed in the customer service side of the world. And now the two really go hand in hand. Customer service is marketing, and the best strategies are the ones that are created cohesively. And that's what we work with our clients to do.
Outstanding. Okay. Customer loyalty, advocacy, brand love, you mentioned. And before we go into that, because I absolutely want to dive first into brand love, it sounds interesting. And I want to cover it in the context of brand love, loyalty, advocacy, in the BC era, in the before COVID era first, and then I want to extend that and look at how we might be advising enterprises now. Before I do, though, do want to welcome a few other guests who've joined the show. So welcome, Stuart Sanders. How the heck are you? It's been way too long. We do need to catch up. Take care of yourself. I hope you're okay in, as you say, windy New York. Raj, welcome to the show. Wilkins, welcome to the show. We've got Amar Najay, Jeremy Young, Ananth Mahadev. This is awesome. So thank you so much. David Weaver, welcome. So thanks, guys. Please get your questions ready and share them, because Sarah Grace is absolutely the expert you want to be asking these questions to. So, okay, so brand love sounds a little hippie. What is it? What does it entail, and how are we helping enterprises to
Yeah, so, well, if you think about it, at any point in your customer journey, you have a relationship with the brand, much like you have with people, and you have ups and downs, right? So sometimes you're going to be seeking support. Other times you might just be talking about a brand or like a person at a point of what I would call neutrality, or in a positive sense. And you don't need anything fixed. There's nothing wrong. But think about that. If you were having a conversation and somebody gave you a compliment and you ignored it, it would be kind of rude, right? And you're really missing an opportunity to create a connection in a moment. So that's really what brand love is really focused on, is looking for those points of where a consumer, whether they're already one or considering becoming one, is having a conversation, likely in a very public space like social, where there's an opportunity to create a really unique engagement or moment to either acquire that customer or kind of keep them on your bench and grow that advocacy as well.
Outstanding. Okay, so makes great sense. And as you said, it's almost rude if you say something nice and you don't get some sort of feedback. So there's an element of just engaging, just almost humanizing these enterprises and sort of saying, hey, thanks a lot for that. That was really nice of you to mention it. But then also being alert and attuned and aware in case something does go wrong, and there's an ability to then step up, respond to it. I would imagine oftentimes taking those discussions offline, if you will, or to a private discussion. Okay, so that was in the era of BC, before COVID, where brand management and brand love and loyalty was important. Now we're into this full-on crisis moment where brand management, I would imagine, is as important, if not more than ever. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, we're hearing this term unprecedented a lot, but it's true. We've had other crises in the past throughout our lifetimes, prior to my lifetime, but nothing really of this magnitude. This is a global crisis. It's one of the few times where something has impacted everybody. Versus something that might be regional, like a national tragedy, or something like a crisis like a school shoot, something like that we've had to pause before, but not to this level. And I think how brands are or are not showing up right now is going to resonate, good or bad, for years to come. This is a much longer crisis, and I don't think we're going to go back to the way things were. I don't think that will ever happen. There'll be a new normal moving forward. And so we have to pivot both our customer whatever the customer or brand engagement is, whether it's customer service or it's brand love, everything is going to be through a different lens moving forward. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. Sure.
No, it is making us all just so attuned to that and conscious of the responsibility that brands and individuals have to, I would imagine, leveraging all of the capabilities we have, all the tools that nothing new necessarily has been introduced in the last few weeks, but it's that heightened awareness and then the commitment to responding and supporting and managing. So is there a set of steps, a framework that you would suggest enterprises and perhaps people think through as they're looking at how to maintain their own brand or an enterprise's brand at a time like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is not a time to go silent, regardless of what industry you're in or what vertical, and regardless, quite frankly, of the size of your company or brand. You know, I'm based in Portland, Oregon, and we have a lot of small to medium businesses here. And how these brands and these companies show up is just as important as your global brands. It's going to be, again, there's going to be a slightly different lens and considerations depending on your industry. So if you're in a more regulated industry, or two things to consider, I kind of bucket things now into, is it a comfort or critical brand, or comfort or critical need? So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind as I walk through these steps. But this is not a time to be quiet. What your consumer is wanting is for you to be proactive, to be consistent, to be transparent, and to be immediate and honest. And with that in mind, I think there are basically about 4 different steps to really consider. The first one being pause, then to review, revise, and then the final step being kind of a bucket of informing and engaging.
Interesting. One of the things, and I'm about to, watch me, I'm about to get free consulting, or try to, because one of the things that I think is challenging, and as you said, there's a different classification of the type of organization, the type of product, the type of service that you offer to end customers. And then there's also, of course, the enterprise responsibility and the enterprise as a global citizen itself. Right? It's an employer. It has obligations, always does, for the safety of the teams that it employs. And it's just that much more important that, first of all, they make the right steps and they take the right steps to ensure safety and security and health. But then that they also make it clear. But then you're in this strange balance because it's not appropriate to self-promote right now. And so you've got to find that right tone. And even with this, I mean, I would imagine if I went back and looked at some of the first OneTAKE lives I did a few weeks ago, I probably was striking a much more sort of calm, perhaps sort of serious tone. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, crap. I mean, it's just, there's only so long you can be so sort of toned down. We've got to live. We've got to still have a degree of personality that we're comfortable with, that we're trying to achieve. There are some of the funniest memes and communications going on, especially if you're a parent or just stuck at home binge eating your rescue food. So there's a humor element that's coming out of humanity as well as we try to figure out how to just cope with all of this. How do you help an individual and an enterprise find that really fragile balance where you can't belittle or be too light about the seriousness of what's going on, but you also just can't be so dour that you drag everyone down, because that doesn't enable you to get a message out.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And it is a fine balance. And quite frankly, I think right now, it's something that you need to check under the hood every day. It's not a set it and forget it, because things are changing. I mean, literally by the time that we're off of this conversation, probably 3 more things will have happened. And that's just what's going on right now. So you have to be really kind of keep your finger on the pulse. And also, yeah, we need humor. We need those human moments. We need that engagement. But what's appropriate for a brand versus a person? Look, I love all the memes too. And I love that everybody's finally on board, like holding up their dogs to the cameras at home, which is, my called Monday for me, but everyone else is on board with that. But with brands, I would say be cautious on making the joke or going for the joke, but be very open in being human and relatable. And that kind of that starts with taking stock of where are all your communication points, not just social. Think through everything, right? So what do you already have planned to go out on your emails or your pay-per-click ads, or how are your customer service agents on the phone speaking? Are they acknowledging that this is going on? I had a conversation with an airline a couple of weeks ago, and we talked like people, and they're in an industry that's really getting hurt. And right. I said, are you in center or are you at home? She said, how do you know these terms? And I said, well, I kind of work in the industry. But it was, I hope you're ending things by saying, I hope you're safe. I hope you're well. It's okay to have your teams acknowledge that something is going on and be a little bit more human than they might be in different circumstances.
Right. No, I think that, and I hope it stays. I hope it sticks, that there is this this invitation to be more human, and a genuine need to associate and relate and connect, especially because we're all so distant from one another physically now that I think it's bringing us closer together on a personal level and an emotional level to everyone, to our families, to local community groups, to our colleagues. So to see enterprises just experiment with that balance and try to find it, especially now. So okay, so you'd mentioned you had some discussions with airlines. Are there other examples that you have from just keeping an eye on this space and looking at it through your informed lens, where you see enterprises are doing something that hits that right tone, that is appropriate for now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, as a brand, you got to stop and ask yourself, are we being tone deaf? Does it seem opportunistic, or is there true value on some level? And value can be measured in different ways now, right? Through this crisis. And sometimes brands are so close to their own brand, it can be difficult for them to see that. And so it's been interesting kind of with some of our partners being more of a close advisor on that front. But I have seen, it's been about a month now since like the majority of the US, for example, has been under more of a shelter in home. Obviously, other regions are ahead of us. And immediately, I did see a couple of brands that I thought really got it right. Because one of the things that you want to look for is, can we use our platform, our consumer base, for something that's really geared towards the greater good, not make it about us or our products? And prior to my time with SYKES, I did a lot of work with Nike, and I saw, I thought they really nailed it right out of the gate. And if you kind of go back, you'll find this really quickly. And it's about, they put an ad out on their social across all of their categories that was really a call to action to stay at home. It was through the Nike lens. It sounded like Nike. It looked like Nike, but it wasn't about a shoe. They weren't trying to sell anything. I thought that was really successful. Also, a lot of the financial institutions, as a customer of these institutions, I got notifications proactively pointing me to digital resources because they were acknowledging that they had really long hold times. So things like that, I thought too, thinking through all the different touch points and how can I redirect consumers in this time, or again, use my platform for the greater good. I think those are both wins.
Interesting. There is the sort of the catalyst to change and adopt new technologies. I think those of us in the industry know that the interest around things like chatbots and any sort of digitization to reduce that hold time are now rapidly being sought out, where the technologies were there and people were tinkering and experimenting. Now they're just clamoring to figure that out, just because they've got to find some way to keep up with the cues. But there is more of an emphasis on doing that to then enable the human touch and the human conversation that I think will make people feel safer and appreciated. So that's interesting to see.
Yeah.
There is a funny meme, got to mention it. You made me think of it when you mentioned some of the organizations that you happen to bank with or use. And the joke effectively is you're learning about every one of the enterprises on earth that has your email address, because you're getting an email from every single one of them right now with some sort of information about their reaction and sharing resources. But it is true. I think a lot of enterprises have taken this as a chance to get in touch and to share what they're learning and share resources they think might be helpful to us as we go. How do we not recover necessarily, but how do we pivot back? What's the next step? What do we think enterprises are going to do as we start to explore very gently a re-entry into the new normal, or try to recapture some of the old normal back in our lives?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that's for certain is everybody seems to be back on social, right? But that's a good thing, because again, this is a living, breathing situation. It's changing all the time, and social is the dynamic platform in order to stay in touch and make those real-time changes, whether you're supporting a customer or you're communicating or trying to engage with them. And so I think really working closely with what you're communicating and putting out from a content perspective and communication perspective moving forward on social. There's other things to consider too. I mean, for a lot of companies out there, you wouldn't think about things like communicating what's going on internally with your employees. Well, depending on who you are now, that's very much a part of your content. And again, you want to be proactive about that depending in your what space you're in. I think the other question too, first and foremost, is like, do we set to sell or not to sell? And the answer is yes. No. But you have to do so. You have to be self-aware more than ever now too. And you're right. I mean, how many emails did we get? This is insert brand name here's response to COVID. And look, some of it was really relevant, I did want to know what was going on at my yoga studio or my dance studio, or, certainly like businesses that are very much in the headlines right now, they're impacted by this, but I didn't need to know about it from every single business. Now, the other one now too is the joke is making fun of brands who are out there saying we're in this together. And that's starting to sound tone deaf in its own way, right? Because it's really watered down and being overused. So maybe there's a different way to say that. And is that the most relevant message that your brand needs to really put out there? Or is it more of a bandwagon response? Like thinking through reactions versus responding. So I think we do sell, but you have to, again, are you in a business that is a comfort need or a critical need? And if you fall into neither, thinking through what can you do in the short term that might be, again, more focused on the greater good than your specific business or brand at the time, or maybe you can do both in tandem too. We're actually seeing a lot of organizations that, sure, they're still selling, but it's kind of in the background, and they're doing things like donating, supplies or manufacturing supplies and pivoting their actual industry and business. So not everyone can do that, but these are kind of some things to think about as you're designing your game plan.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, no, it's you have such a fine balance, because you're right. To some degree, you almost want to see some enterprises just get back to normal and just, we get it. You're going to put out content that's advertising and creating a brand promise. Just do that, just because it is a little tired. And it's funny, is from a timing perspective, if we're all in this together is relevant and meaningful, that's fine. But if you're the 50th brand that starts to say it, are you jumping on bandwagon, and is this a little trite, or are we all comfortable with it for a little bit longer? But then we kind of want to get back. I also get a kick out of using some of the old. I mean, I suppose just because of some of the things I do, I've become very attuned to where they're going back to just a library of video content from the past, because there's still just too many people together in a commercial, right? It's just they're too close. You didn't film that recently. I know that. You've just thankfully you're using old footage, but we need to figure out how do we visually depict life when you get back to just putting out commercials versus these public service announcements around your enterprise being a global citizen and wishing everyone well.
Yeah, it's interesting what is sort of like a trigger. And again, these are things that were developed long before, this was a crisis, but we're looking at things like that's not how things are right now. We don't get together. I mean, even seeing commercials with like parties or groups of people together for concerts can be really sensitive. So again, but you are seeing companies that have already made a change and a pivot on that front, particularly like in the telecommunications field. They were very quick to turn that around. And I think that goes back to thinking through your inventory and all those different touch points. And also thinking through, moving forward, I would say that customer service, which is a form of brand engagement, is more important than ever now. So again, how are you showing up? And are there ways that you can help your customer out? They might be small things like waiving shipping or waiving a late fee or offering something for free or as an extra incentive. We're seeing this massive rush to direct e-commerce because we're not in brick and mortar stores right now. So again, what are those little things that are probably not going to cost you too much on the bottom line, but it really goes a long way. And even more now, again, it really humanizes your brand, but make it specific to who your brand is.
Oh, that's a great point. I'll take a break there to also welcome a few other folks who've joined us. Bagish Oja, hello. Trisha, hello. AJ, howdy. How are you doing? James McMaster, thanks for joining. If you guys have any questions for me or for Sarah Grace, please do put them in the feed down below and let us know, and we will try our best to answer them. So enterprises are trying to find that fine balance. They are communicating that they're global citizens. You made a great point, Sarah Grace, about messaging not just being to the external market and customers or prospective customers, but also in some cases as much being to their internal community. Where have we seen that, and what do you suggest enterprises do about laying that message down? Because, and I guess I'll go into a bit more detail to make the question even longer, but a lot of enterprises have a fine balance to weigh here as well around that safety of their people with the livelihood of their people. Work has to continue because people, in a time when unemployment has just exploded, people need jobs as much as they need they need jobs in addition to safety and health. It's imperative. So how does an organization pick that really respectful balance in their own internal communications?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, and I think sometimes, first of all, sometimes those internal communications should be external as well, how you are treating or taking care of your employees, because we as consumers want to know that. And we're a very mindful consumer base now. That is going to influence our decision to support or patron a company just as much as how cool is something that we're buying or what is the price point. In fact, it's probably going to influence it more. I think when you think about there's some like usual suspects right now, right? So of course you have the healthcare industry and the phenomenal work that the people in this industry are doing, putting themselves on the front line. But then you think about things like your grocery stores and your delivery drivers, your kind of UPSs. Amazon has obviously been in the news a lot, and you're going to get mixed results. When you think of an organization that big, there's going to be different pockets that are reporting success or failure with that. What I have seen Amazon do that I think is interesting is really, again, don't hide, don't be quiet, get in front of it as fast as you can. I even, heard that Jeff Bezos went out and did some surprise in-store visits to some of the warehouses and to Whole Foods. I think that says a lot. And again, it's sort of an internal employee communication. What is your organization experiencing? Are you a company with layoffs? Are you remaining static? Are you hiring? If it's the latter, definitely want to put that out there. But if you are hiring, what precautions are currently in place, and how are you maintaining that? And you need to communicate that two ways, to the employee and to the public as well, and really walk the walk by, demonstrating it. We have a local grocery store here called New Seasons. It's kind of like a local Whole Foods, and they were the first in our community to visibly practice social distancing, staggered entry, well before the big boxes were coming in. So you could see it in play, not just hear it or read about it as well. And I think that that's really important for credibility for a brand.
That's great. So we hopefully we'll get back to some sort of new normal, but probably with a whole lot of new habits or enhanced habits that we've picked up over the last few weeks and months, which include things like a higher level of comfort with ordering things online, with getting food delivered, with getting various different services handled via a sort of a virtual means, which then even further, I would imagine, sort of heightens the requirement and the imperative to create great brand and great sets of relationships over over social media, just because you're not going to walk into a big box store as often, at least in the near future, just because either you're uncomfortable doing so or you just realize you don't need to, you got along without it. So it's this sort of in brand engagement over social media means engaging with enterprises. That's going to be the most visceral touch point we may forever have, rather than having a greeter at a front door or just seeing a layout or a sign or dealing with an attendant within the store. So I guess I've sort of led the witness and answered the question myself, but I'd really like your perspective on, is this idea around brand management, engagement, brand love only going to become more and more valuable and powerful as we return to whatever the new normal is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And you know, I truly think that the answer is yes. I think we're going to actually kind of crave, again, with a different lens on it, we're going to crave these moments of humanity and goodwill. And, you know, with our brand engagement and our brand love efforts, they're already taking place in a digital sense, you know, that's really focused on social. Now, it could be referring to an experience a person has had offline, whatever that might mean, in a brick and mortar or within their family or within their community. I think now coming out of this, what we're going to be looking for to put like front and center are those moments of that really illustrate that selflessness and community impact that happen, not from the brand, but really putting the consumer front and center. And look, if the brand was a part of it that helped facilitate it, that's great, but it should be in the backdrop for now. Don't make yourself the star. So I think that there's going to be more humanity in these moments. I think that, you know, we're going to also discover in what ways do businesses actually work better, stronger, smarter through digital means. And I really hope it also adds back into a layer of like authenticity to those digital connections as well. And I think that with brand engagement, that's how you can really achieve that. Know who you are as a brand and how does that look, sound, and feel in a social space. And the more that you can define that and execute that, the more organic these moments will be. And again, I really think that that's what consumers are craving right now too. I mean, we are so isolated from each other. We have gotten quite clever on figuring out ways to really stay in touch. And what does connection mean moving forward?
Outstanding. No, that's tremendous. Humanness, authenticity. I really appreciate your perspective. Chris Dudridge, thank you for your comment. He just mentioned that he's impressed by how some industries like retail have done loads to prioritize hiring from all the grounded aircraft crew and others. And Chris, as I mentioned at the beginning of these live streams with jobs.sykes.com, there are a lot of at-home agent jobs that I think those who are in retail and other service industries would excel at, just because they've got the core skills of empathy and understanding and engagement and customer support. And at this time where health is so important, and because some industries really have taken it on the chin and are on hold, we need to help everybody in every way we can to, again, be global citizens and to give them opportunities. So thanks for your point, Chris. There you have it. Sarah Grace McCandless, you were as amazing a guest as I knew you would be, because of your experience and your intimacy with helping enterprises both create great brands in good times and manage brands in times of crisis. Any final words for our guests before we close the show?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, if you think about, I mean, this is really new territory for a lot of us, and it's okay to ask for help. It's, you know, it's okay. We're kind of figuring this out as we go, but don't hesitate to take a moment, take a beat, pause. We all want to react versus respond, because that's what happens generally in a stressful and anxious situation. But if you stop and kind of take a look around you and look at the consumers who are already a part of your world, community is key right now don't lose sight of that and really think through how can you amplify and really reach out to that existing community. What do they need right now? And what can you uniquely provide as a brand, even if it's not about your bottom line today?
Right.
The actions that you take will influence that moving forward. There is another side of this. We're kind of at a top of a hill. We're seeing the other side of it now. And again, there'll be a new norm. It's not better or worse. It's just different. And what can you contribute to that new normality as a brand?
There you have it. Sarah Grace, thank you so much. Thanks for everyone who joined us, for everyone who shared their names and their locations. Look forward to coming at you again very soon with another OneTAKE Live. For now, I wish you all health and safety. Take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you again soon. Take care, everyone.